Hey guys, I'm so sorry for being late. It's 15 minutes. I woke up a little later today. I normally wake up at 6 and I woke up at 8, so I was like, oh gosh. So I apologize. I'm like fresh out of the shower and I don't have any makeup on. I'm getting some redness on my face, and it's because I get so dry in the winter, and I always love your guys' recommendations. I'm trying a few products from The Ordinary. My skincare routine is like so simple, it's stupid. And so sometimes it really works for me very well in the summer, but sometimes in the winter it's just not enough. Or if I'm not exfoliating at all, because I don't really exfoliate, it gets to a point where stuff is not soaking into my skin anymore. So I ordered some acids from The Ordinary. Ooh, I'm getting fancy. I ordered a few things like their hyaluronic acid, their hydrating factors, and I heard that if you use a humidifier at night with your hyaluronic acid, the hyaluronic acid will actually bring the moisture into your skin. So it's kind of a nice way. And I also bought their acid mask, their AHA plus BHA, which I know is super powerful. So it's very important to like only use it. I'm going to probably use it like once every 2 weeks or so, but I really do need some like intense exfoliation. Okay, every time I try to eat raw carrots, I get bloated within a couple hours. What causes this? So the point and the purpose of raw carrots or the raw carrot salad is actually to start shifting the microbiome. Remember guys, carrots are really antifungal and antibacterial, which is why when you set them, let's say you set a raw carrot down on the counter for weeks, it kind of just shrivels up and dehydrates. It never rots, right? It never gets moldy, gets full of fungus. It actually just shrivels up because it's so antibacterial and so antifungal that it will resist all bacteria. So it's doing the same thing in the gut. It's also really powerful at binding estrogen. So I've had clients that are so incredibly, they have such bad bacterial balance, or they have really bad small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, and when they eat the raw carrot, what's happening is it's killing a lot of bacteria and it's really shifting the microbiome. And anytime you guys get bloated, you need to understand bloat is always bacteria. So when bacteria is fermenting things, it lets off this gas, right, which is usually pretty toxic, but that's what's responsible for creating air, and that's going to create some bloating. So just keep that in mind. Usually some things you could do, is eat half of the raw carrot salad. That's something you could do, like eat half in the morning, half in the evening. You could do like half a carrot, just a tolerance, and then you can build up over time. I've had clients that can't even tolerate the raw carrot salad at all, so we have them just do like half a raw carrot, and then we build up to like a full raw carrot, and then we actually build up to the raw carrot salad. So if you have really bad bacterial balance in the gut, you're gonna find that the raw carrot really bloats you. But if it never goes away, then maybe you need to do some alternative fiber, but usually it will go away as you get tolerance. Thoughts on taking biotin for hair growth health? Some people say it's amazing. Some people say it messes their other things up for them, skin, minerals, etc. Yeah, so when it comes to any B vitamins, you have to understand that if you're deficient, you're going to see benefits from it, which is why some people are like, wow, this worked wonders for me, because they were truly B7 deficient. Whereas, when it comes to just having it be a kind of like a fix-all for everyone, just doesn't really make sense. And with the B vitamins, you always want to be really cautious, because if you start to throw one B vitamin in high amounts, you really off-balance the rest of them. Also, synthetic B vitamins always have that, that I always give that caution. They do have the ability to break you out, but keep in mind why B vitamins break you out is because they feed bacteria in the gut. Remember guys, your body or your bacteria in your gut is what actually synthesizes or makes your B vitamins for you. And they act kind of like prebiotics to other bacteria. But when you have an overgrowth of really poor bacteria, what happens is when you take a B vitamin that is a prebiotic for another bacteria that you don't want there, you're actually feeding that bacteria, and that can result in acne, etc., or further your gut issues. So it's very important to know that you're biotin deficient before taking biotin. Most people with really bad gut issues, really bad detoxification issues are biotin deficient because all of your bacteria in your gut tend to like to eat biotin. So when you have bad gut issues, you're not making enough, and your overgrowth is really eating a lot of your biotin. But taking it doesn't always fix that issue, because keep in mind, if you're putting it into your digestive tract, most of the time the bacteria is going to be consuming that for you. So I recommend fixing the microbiome first, and then a lot of times the biotin deficiency goes away. But some people do see a lot of benefit, and it's very cheap. There's one on Amazon or at most health food stores called MRM. It's a biotin MRM brand. It's like $8. So it's a pretty inexpensive thing to experiment with to see if it helps you. It's not something that can hurt. The only time that you would want to stop is if you're seeing like negative side effects like skin and stuff. But a lot of people are taking it in like excessive amounts, like 10,000 micrograms or 10 milligrams, which is a huge amount of B vitamins. So you don't want to overdose or megadose B vitamins. They usually end up causing problems. Sorry, I'm snacking on my apple, so I'll be annoying and talk with my mouth full. I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue stage 1, and I feel like I'm slipping into stage 2. Been having energy dips like I'm hypoglycemic, appetite is low, and anxiety. Can any of this be histamine reaction or just stress? Okay, so interesting thing about histamine is it's really misunderstood, and histamine is a really I should say it's really poorly addressed in the health and wellness community by most people. Remember, guys, if you have histamine intolerance, you have a mineral imbalance. And what that is keep in mind, to detoxify histamines properly, you need 3 things. You need copper, magnesium, and vitamin B6. And if you don't have those 3 things, the DAO enzyme, which is needed to break down histamine, cannot function. And so most of the time, a histamine deficiency is simply a copper dysregulation issue and a magnesium deficiency, and most likely a B vitamin deficiency. So that needs to be addressed, and most of the time, a lot of food allergies and food sensitivities and histamine issues just magically disappear because you're dealing with the root cause. The thing about what's going on right now, and it's kind of like a game of telephone that's not really benefiting a lot of people, is in the health and wellness community, there's all these fake root causes, meaning they're calling histamine issues a root cause. They're causing SIBO, or they're calling the SIBO a root cause. They're calling gut issues a root cause. They're calling hormone imbalances a root cause. Those are not root causes. Why are your hormones imbalanced? Why do you have SIBO? Why do you have histamine issues? That's where the root cause is. And so it's really interesting because we're so obsessed with all these things, which is super overwhelming, and we end up being put on a million different supplements. And in reality, it's not really helping us. If you're slipping into a stage 2 adrenal fatigue and you're getting more hypoglycemic, you need more fuel, you need more energy, you probably need to eat more often, you probably need more sleep. If you're exercising at all, you probably need less. What else? You probably have a high need for magnesium, a high need for vitamin C, and a high need for minerals like sodium and potassium. You also have a high need for B vitamins, and you probably need to focus on supporting detoxification at some point. But nutrient-dense foods are very important. Taking your temperatures and pulses is super important. So learning how to read those in relationship to your stress. Do you have a low body temperature? Do you have a low pulse? That's the first sign that something's off that needs to be addressed, and we need to be focusing on getting those temperatures up. Adrenal fatigue doesn't really exist, unfortunately. Your adrenals don't fatigue. Your adrenals do get depleted from minerals. Your whole body will get depleted from minerals, and your adrenals included need a high amount of sodium and magnesium, and so they won't pump out as many hormones. Keep in mind, your adrenals don't just pump out cortisol and adrenaline. They also pump out pregnenolone, DHEA, which turns into estrogen and progesterone. They pump out the mineralocorticoids like aldosterone, which is super important for regulating potassium and sodium levels. We've got, what else? We've got, norepinephrine, epinephrine, or adrenaline and noradrenaline. We've got a lot of important hormones coming from those little baby adrenals. And so when we are being diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, I just find that it's not a full understanding of what's going on. The whole body is depleted. It's in a depleted state. And when you're trying to heal, you need to flood the body, first of all, with nutrition, lots and lots of calories. I'm talking, a base need for a grown woman is anywhere from like 2,000 to 2,500. And most times when you're struggling with adrenal fatigue or you're in that exhaustive state, you need to be pushing it more to like 2,500, 3,000. And a lot of people are like, oh no, what about the weight gain? And I'm like, what about it? If you have to gain weight, you have to gain weight. Your body needs to feel safe. Truly, when we're trying to heal these issues, the body needs to do whatever it needs to do. We just need to provide it what it needs. And then also I would evaluate your supplements. Are you taking something like, there's a lot of supplements that are common that are awful for adrenal fatigue, like vitamin D, for example. It raises ACTH, which further stimulates the adrenals to bump out cortisol and adrenaline. So, a lot of people are just trying to fix their issues and they have their best intentions in mind, but a lot of what's going around in the health and wellness community is unfortunately very false, and sugar included. Sugar is the ultimate adaptogen, and so a lot of people with adrenal fatigue are avoiding sugar, and in reality they need to be consuming lots of it. So, and of course, you saw yesterday I had a hater on my page, or not yesterday, but the day before, and she was just like, coming at me for promoting sugar. And of course, you guys know, I don't always say every sugar is created equal. I am a big promoter of eating sugar with nutrients, so fruits, fruit juices, coconut sugar, which has lots of minerals, maple syrup. But I'm not opposed to using a little bit of sugar here and there, organic cane sugar, or, having a Mexican Coke from time to time. High fructose corn syrup is a different story. It's not good for you, but a little sugar is not going to kill you. It's mostly the PUFAs that are going to cause that kind of vicious cycle. But sugar with nutrients is the best. Fruit, an abundance of fruit for adrenal issues is the best thing we could be doing. Okay, Sienna says, period came almost 2 weeks late this month. What is the most likely cause of this? Always had pretty consistent periods, except maybe 2 to 3 days late every now and then after baby. Yeah, usually postpartum, it's normal to have irregular cycles. But usually if your period comes 2 weeks late, remember, it's not about the period, it's about the ovulation. So did the ovulation come late? And where was your emotional state 2 weeks ago? So were you super stressed out? Were you dealing with a stressful event? Was there something? A lot of times it's an emotional stress, but it can also be physical stress. Like some people are drinking too much. Maybe they went on like a open bar cruise and they're just drinking a lot and their body's like, not eating enough. Maybe you went through a period of like, I had to work. Maybe you weren't sleeping very well during that time. And so whatever it was pushed ovulation to be late, and therefore your period came late. So a lot of times that's the case. Usually I don't stress about it unless it becomes a very common thing. But a lot of times when you're working on your hormones, or if you're postpartum or you have imbalances already, it's kind of normal to start to see your period kind of balance out. And sometimes what's happening is the period's actually starting to align with the moon a little bit. Your cycles are starting to get more in sync with new moon, full moon, that type of thing. So just kind of pay attention to that. But there are times where my period will just out of the blue, like come a little late or come a little early, and I'm like, And I usually evaluate, okay, what happened during ovulation, and a lot of times I was stressed more than normal. Do you think oat milk is just like almond milk or any of the nut milks? Oh yeah, oat milk is junk. Just because, like, what oats are they using? If they're not using organic oats, it's pretty much just pesticide soup. Oats are really heavily sprayed in glyphosate. They're the second highest crop sprayed in pesticides. And keep in mind, guys, Monsanto is literally going through a huge, like, hundreds of millions of dollars lawsuit that glyphosate causes lymphoma. So, it's important to avoid glyphosate when we can, and pesticides when we can. And then on top of it, most oat milk has canola oil in it. Ugh. And I don't know why people would drink that stuff. Like it's just such a Franken food. I just don't understand, like, why we would drink it. Like, it's not milk. Like, it's not milk. We got to get it through our head. Like, it's not milk. It's processed in a factory. They usually use high heat, poor cooking equipment. What type of metals are they cooking that stuff in? What chemicals are they using in that boxed packaging? Like, I mean, you could ask a million questions, but you don't want to be drinking that shit. Like, maybe once in a while, I guess, but I just don't understand why we would ever touch our lips to that nut juice or that oat juice. Hi Jessica, I was wondering how to find the right dosage with Onus progesterone oil. I don't ovulate. It just kind of depends. I think it's like always good to start conservative. When I'm looking for progesterone dose, I'm always looking for the signs of taking too much, which is normally like we'll feel really lazy, really tired, really kind of sleepy, lethargic. Progesterone does like give us, it's the chill pill. So if we feel too chill or we have too much chill, usually that's enough. So, I can't really give dosages, but usually like a normal dosage is anywhere from like 20 to 100 milligrams. And usually experimenting somewhere in there is pretty, usually you'll find your dose somewhere there. I usually start with 25 or 50, and then I would work up from there. But a lot of times with the oil, it's really well absorbed through the gums, and so you don't tend to need a lot. Like if you were taking a capsule of progesterone, a lot of times you need like 100 to 200 milligrams because it's going through the liver and being processed that way. But when you're taking like an oil and rubbing it directly into the gums, it's going directly into the bloodstream, and so a lot of times we can do with a little bit less. Is having to pee all the time a sign of high stress? Yes, that is definitely a sign of high adrenaline, and we probably need a lot of magnesium and potassium and sodium to kind of calm ourselves down. But yeah, if we have to pee more than 4 or 5 times a day, usually our adrenaline is quite high. I also have an HTMA and I have crazy aluminum on my test. What can I do to lower those metals? Is that my body is moving them that makes them high? If you're a slow oxidizer, especially if you're a slow one, you're probably not moving them, and that's probably an exposure to aluminum. And so you need to kind of look at, okay, what could possibly be exposing you to aluminum? One of the most common is your pans. Stainless steel pans a lot of times have aluminum in them. So that would be the first thing. Or are you cooking on aluminum foil? You want to make sure you're avoiding aluminum. Usually if your aluminum is very elevated on an HTMA and you're a slow oxidizer, it means you have an exposure. Slow oxidizers have a very hard time moving metals, and so you're not going to find them just dumping metals unless it's a very a very particular situation, but often they're not going to move metals. They're going to be a high metal on an HTMA is usually going to be some type of exposure, and it's going to be a consistent exposure. Tried biological progesterone this cycle, and now my period is a week late and counting. Is this common side effect? My periods are usually regular. Yeah, it can be. Especially if you take too much or you take it at the wrong time. Yeah, that can definitely prevent a cycle from coming. But yeah, that is really weird. It probably is going to come, but that is sometimes a side effect if you don't need it, or if you didn't get your progesterone levels tested before, or if you maybe took it before you ovulated, like that can really cause a little bit of an issue. So yeah, there's some factors that could cause that, but yeah, you just want to kind of pay attention and make sure it does come eventually. Hi Jess, how are you? I'm good. Hope you're doing well. Please can you help me with a skincare query? When making a face mask, is it okay to use any honey? Or does it have to be organic manuka? I don't think it has to be organic manuka, but I think it should be raw. So pasteurized honey does not have the same effects as raw honey. The enzymes in it are what help with like the moisturization and the breaking down of dead skin cells. So that's the only thing, but I don't think it has to be like a specific type of honey. Sorry for this question, but my nipples have been so sensitive those last weeks. This never happens to me before. What could be the cause? Estrogen? I'm thinking you mean progesterone. Yeah, if you're taking too much progesterone, keep in mind, like during pregnancy, your nipples are super sensitive because you have elevated progesterone or elevated estrogen. They both can make your nipples sensitive. So you kind of want to evaluate what's going on. A lot of people implement bioidentical progesterone way too soon. That's not a good idea. If your liver's not functioning properly, you have lots of high stress hormones, your body's not going to respond to progesterone the way that you want to, and it's probably going to cause weird symptoms. So sometimes if you're seeing more symptoms on bioidentical progesterone than off it, it's probably not a good idea to take it at this time. But yeah, usually progesterone being way high is going to be cause nipple soreness, or it can be excessive estrogen. It can cause like breast tenderness, nipple tenderness, that type of thing. What happens to your body cycle when you take Plan B? Well, people would say, according to a lot of the science out there, it's totally safe, right? Everything's fine when you take Plan B. It's not a big deal, but don't rely on it for contraception too often. That should be your warning that, okay, what's going on? So when you actually pull the FDA inserts, where, if you've seen my Plan B story highlight, all that information that I got was directly from the FDA insert and a study that I saw that read what is the mechanisms of actions of Plan B. And if you guys ever want those studies, you can hit me up in the DMs and I will send you those studies. I have them saved because they're mind-blowing to me. I mean, there's the study and then there's just the FDA insert, which, like, dude, you read that, mind blown. So really, it's a high dose of levonorgestrel. It's similar to taking about a month and a half's worth of birth control pills in one handful, like at once. Keep in mind, what does the birth control pill do? Well, we know it depletes our body of vital nutrients needed to create a healthy corpus luteum, which helps us make progesterone. So you can only imagine what taking a high dose of that hormone is going to do and deplete us. This is why a lot of times people don't get their periods for 3 to 4 months afterwards. And unfortunately, I've gotten DMs from women that said, thank you so much for talking about this because I took Plan B, 5 years ago and I've never been the same. So, women are struggling and they're being told, no, it's all in your head, and it's not. We know that the birth control pill depletes us. And so what is taking 45 times the birth control pill gonna do all at once? Probably deplete us to a point where we're completely depleted in zinc or B vitamins or selenium. Also, keep in mind that progestin, which is that fake progesterone, it has a lot of estrogenic action. Also has a lot of androgenic action. And so it really is not progesterone. And so it really can cause a lot of, almost a stress response, I would say, because a high level of synthetic xenoestrogens is going to deplete your liver. Your liver is like, oh my gosh. And so your liver is going through that. And think about someone that maybe goes into Plan B who already is already struggling, with a sluggish detoxification. Maybe they already have a lot of gut issues. I mean, that's going to affect their gut. That's going to affect yeast in the gut. That's going to affect bacteria in the gut. That's going to affect liver and gallbladder flow. I mean, it can really wreck us. And depending on how we're going into it, I would say it probably could wreck some people more than others. And then, we have to keep in mind that a lot of birth control is high in copper, which I'm not really sure if the morning after pill is, because I'm honestly not sure. I haven't looked into that, but I know that the birth control pill is high in copper. So really, what happens to our body and our cycle, it's just a huge stressor. It would be taking, it's like taking a packet of birth control pills and just popping them out on, and then like scraping them into your hand and just being like, swallow. Would we ever do that? No. But we do when we take Plan B. So it's just something to keep in mind. And I sadly, I've seen so many women that just are like, yeah, it wrecked me. Like, I've never been the same since. I've been struggling with infertility, irregular cycles. I got diagnosed with PCOS afterwards. Like, just crazy stories. I missed one of your last lives and it did not get saved. Any natural treatment for UTI? I'm getting it all the time in blood and urine. Too much antibiotics. Yeah. Usually, like, I will take, if I feel like the oncoming UTI, urinary tract infection, I will, first of all, take a specific probiotic. So you can even type in UTI probiotic, and it's called Lactobacillus reuteri, and I'm not really pronouncing it right, but it's REUTERI, I want to say, and it is specifically helpful for the urinary tract. So I will take some type of supplement with that in it, like just a straight strain of that. I'll also take something by Solar Ray called diagnose with cran-actin. So diagnose is that potent amino acid in cranberry juice that can help with kind of clearing out the kidneys and the bladder, and so that can be very, very helpful. Chugging water, which is not like always my recommendation, but like coconut water that's rich in potassium and sodium is a good idea. Staying hydrated, so you're peeing a lot, and that's like the only time I'll ever recommend peeing a lot is you're just trying to get the bacteria to pass through. But yeah, those are not, I wouldn't say those are like natural treatments. I would say they shouldn't always be used in place, but that's usually what I will begin with. And then if I need something else, or I feel like, yeah, it's not getting better, I won't push it, because you don't want a UTI to turn into a kidney infection, which is absolutely something that can happen. So it's something to keep in mind. If it's getting worse, then it needs to be addressed. Maybe try a different antibiotic that's not so, a lot of times the ones that they give for UTIs are like the most potent, most intense antibiotics. And I always ask for like penicillin or something like that. Like I ask for something a little bit gentler, a little bit that's been around a little longer. By the way, hi, beautiful woman. So nice to see you. Love your pretty face. Oh, it's so good to see you, Lynn. I'm sorry. That's so miserable. UTIs are really miserable. They're so simple, but they really are so miserable. Oh, another thing I will mention is a sitz bath. So if you can do a bath with like lots of Epsom salt, so straight sea salt, because it's super antibacterial. And I actually do a little bit of borax and apple cider vinegar, and just, mix it around like it's your witch's brew. I'm just kidding, but yeah, you're trying to do like some antibacterial substances, and you just want to sit in that so it gets to all the places it needs to go, and kind of works as being very antibacterial. But yeah, Epsom salt, sea salt, a little bit of borax, and some apple cider vinegar. Started taking a D3 plus B12 vitamin per the suggestion of my lactation consultant. She said most of the moms and babes are deficient in D. That's why pediatricians recommend supplement baby with D. Thoughts? No, I don't think that. Vitamin D has a very specific progression. Keep in mind, guys, vitamin D is a hormone. It's not a vitamin. It's a hormone. It should be called hormone D, not vitamin D, hormone D. It has very specific actions, and remember, hormones are cellular signalers. And so keep in mind, to actually become deficient in vitamin D, we have to have a series of minerals become deficient. So first we become deficient in potassium, then we become deficient in magnesium. Then our calcium levels shoot up. Then we become deficient in lithium, we become deficient in rubidium, and therefore boron, and then now we are deficient in vitamin D. And we are not deficient. Our body has actually lowered vitamin D on purpose, because elevated calcium, the body does not want that to calcify the soft tissues. That's what vitamin D does. It causes calcification of the soft tissue. It does not allow calcium to get where it needs to go. And so it's very interesting that, vitamin D is another one of those like really bad health and wellness games of telephone that has just gone through the ears of people. Keep in mind that our minerals levels are 10% of our minerals are going to be passed on to the child. So if we're already deficient in potassium, magnesium, boron, rubidium, lithium, all of those deficiencies are going to be passed on to our child. And so therefore, their body is going to be just as wise and keep vitamin D fairly low so their soft tissues don't get calcified. So oftentimes vitamin D deficiency is actually a mineral issue, and we have to actually get that figured out before we just supplement lots of hormone D. In addition, they also test the wrong form of vitamin D often. They're testing 25-OH vitamin D, which is actually the storage form of vitamin D. So if you wanted to actually get your levels tested, you would want to test 100 OH. And that's where you would actually see your active levels of vitamin D. 25 OH only shows you what your storage is. And then a lot of people say like, oh my gosh, I get so much energy when I take vitamin D. And I'm like, yeah, because when you take hormone D, it tells your pituitary gland in your brain to pump out something called ACTH, which is a hormone that stimulates the adrenal glands to create cortisol, the stress response. So that's why we're getting like, oh my gosh, I feel so much energy. And it's because, we're actually stimulating a stress response. So it is, I'm not a big fan of taking D3 unless you're really truly not getting any sunlight, but it's very important for us to get our mineral levels figured out before we take vitamin D, especially if our calcium is really high, because if our calcium's high, we're going to be calcifying our soft tissues. I don't know if I'm deficient in either, so don't want to overdo it, but I have noticed an increase in energy. Yeah, B12 will give us an increase in energy. B12 is just a water-soluble vitamin, so we'll pee it out if we are taking too much. But hormone D should be supplemented with caution. Hey, thoughts on L-glutamine as a supplement? Thanks. And also EstroSense as a supplement long-term. Doc Naturopath has me on those. I'm not sure what's in EstroSense. I need to look it up, and I don't have my iPad right now. But L-glutamine, it's one of those things where it's really dependent on the person. Like, some people can seriously mess themselves up with amino acid supplementation, especially high amounts of one specific amino acid. And then, some people do really great on it. So it just kind of depends. It's not like a yes or no, but it is important to not, overdo it and only take it for how long you need it and then be done. If I was going to supplement individual amino acids, it's always going to be the BCAAs. And that's just kind of because those are going to be the most effective at helping us rebuild our tissue. Have you ever tried Organic Olivia's products? I haven't. I kind of have my eyes on Main Magic. Kind of I kind of wanted to just try it out, and I would do it for 60 to 90 days and give you guys an honest review, just because it's when you go on someone's website, they're gonna block any type of negative reviews or reviews that are this doesn't work at all, they're gonna only allow the 5 stars to come through. So I don't feel I have a good sense of if it truly works or not. I did look at the ingredients, and some of the ingredients are a little bit estrogenic. And so a lot of people were saying that it helps them with their periods, and I'm yeah, because it's estrogen. So Dong Quai, for example, so I have some drawbacks, and I know she said she was creating a PCOS formula. I don't know if she has yet, but I'm really afraid it's going to be an estrogenic formula, and I'm no. So that's just kind of my 2 cents. Herbs are really powerful. They are our medicine for sure, but they don't fix an issue. If you're not eating enough carbohydrates, or you're not eating the right types of fats, or you're not getting enough sunlight, for example, they're just covering an issue. It's kind of like a Band-Aid, just like anything else. They're not going to heal you, because they're just not powerful enough to do that. So, but no, I haven't tried them. That was a long way of saying no, I haven't. Can you recommend a light to buy online for vitamin D exposure? There's so many different kinds online, and I have absolutely no idea which to get. I need to do a little bit more research, but you're looking for so I live in California, so I don't need to get one, but I would probably just do something cheap, like a reptile light, honestly. Something made for reptiles, because that could be helpful. Or just a red light that they sell at the hardware store, a warming light. And just park that on myself. Now, you do have to be careful. They get really hot, so you don't want to burn yourself or have them so close that they're singeing your hair. You want to be kind of cautious with them. But that's kind of what I would do, is just I personally would get a reptile light. There's a lot of ones made for humans, but it's just they end up charging you, so much more. Whereas why? I'm just going to get a clamp light and get the bulb I need, and I'm good to go. And I just spent, $15 as opposed to $100. So I just would look for a reptile light. How long after ovulation does the temporize? I've been Googling, but I'm just scratching my head in confusion. Yeah, so usually 24 hours after. So it takes about 24 hours for the corpus luteum to form and start making you progesterone, which will then raise your thyroid temperature. So it's 24 to 48 sometimes, but usually it's about 24 hours. So you'll see kind of a dip happen, and then you'll see that spike, and that means that once you see that spike, 24 hours before you ovulated. What helps hair strength and growth? figuring out your issues. I wish I could give you one specific thing, but it really just depends on what's going on internally. For example, your hair is made up of a lot of minerals, and so if you're deficient in any one given mineral, that can affect your hair. But it can also affect, so vitamin A deficiency can super affect your hair. Vitamin E deficiency can super affect your hair. Not eating enough protein and having poor digestion to where you're not absorbing your protein can affect your hair. So you know what I mean? Like there could be a million different things going on, and it's just important to get to the root of the issue rather than spend like hundreds of dollars on supplements, because sometimes it just becomes very, very frustrating. But overall, eating a healthier diet, getting your stomach acid, your digestive enzymes up, making sure you're eating enough protein helps. Getting enough magnesium is really important. Sodium, potassium, all of those are really important. And then getting your stress levels low. You know, stress is going to deplete you of the same nutrients you want to go to contribute to things like rebuilding your skin and rebuilding your hair. And so if you're using stress to pull and deplete that, then you're not going to get that for things like hair. So it's just important to keep in mind that our stress levels are going to affect that as well. Doc at Work says collagen isn't a complete protein and therefore not good for anything else other than hair, skin, and nails. Can you speak to that? I thought there was more to it from what you've said. Yeah, it's not a complete protein. No one's saying it's a complete protein, but neither is a bean or a nut. But people are like, oh my God, they're so rich in protein. So it's like, it's just funny to me. Yeah, you shouldn't just use collagen as your protein. But if you're getting meat and you're getting dairy and you're getting eggs, you're getting a variety of the amino acids. And your amino acids, your body utilizes them kind of like building blocks in a sense. So your body pools all your amino acids and then will build chains however it needs to. So it will combine different amino acids to do different building tasks throughout your body. And so collagen is really rich in glycine, which a lot of us are deficient in. And it balances out something called L-methionine, which is very, when you're eating lots of your meat or your protein from meat, you're getting tons of L-methionine. And you need to balance it out with glycine or it's going to acidify your body. It's not, you don't want to be only getting your protein from meat, especially if you're not eating collagenous and gelatinous foods. Keep in mind that humans, even 100 years ago, were eating the whole animal. We were eating the joints and the bones in a broth form. We were eating all of the organs. We were also eating the meat, but we were usually combining it with organ meats. And we were eating, the head cheese and the lard, and all of those parts of the animal were being consumed by us at any given time, which was balancing out the amino acids. It's how nature works. And so now we go to the store and we buy ground beef, which was made out of, the flank of the cow. We're not getting any of those other things. And so what's happening is we're eating that same thing over and over and over again. We're getting an abundance of the amino acids found in that cow's flank, but we're not getting any of the collagen or the gelatin or the nutrients in the head cheese or the nutrients in the organs. And so what's happening is we're getting a imbalance of amino acids. And so the reason why I recommend gelatin and collagen is so that we balance out the amino acids. We're getting enough glycine to support the healing of the gut and the intestinal lining, which is what glycine is needed for, but also for liver detoxification. Glycine is very important for liver detoxification. So somebody that says a statement that collagen is only good for hair, skin, and nails leads me to believe they don't understand nutrition at all, or they just are like, they've heard like a supplement tagline, like collagen's good for hair, skin, and nails. And I'm like, that's not, why is it good for hair, skin, and nails, you guys? Because it's giving you the amino acids you need to build your tissues. Like, I'm just like, dude. But anyways, it's kind of an ignorant statement in my opinion. FYI, spent Thanksgiving with Justin Miriam last night, and a good chunk of our night had to do with how thankful we are for you and your work. You are loved and appreciated. You've helped me so much. Oh, I appreciate you guys. I miss you guys so much. I'm better now from the migraine. I had to slow down on the dairy and the OJ. Yeah, if the dairy and the OJ was causing a migraine, it's probably a histamine issue. You probably need lots of vitamin C, magnesium, and B vitamins. I've heard you can get rid of the wart virus. I've seen some on my fingers that just won't go away. What can I do? It's not really about what do I do or how do I get rid of the wart virus. It's always why is my body weak so weak against the wart virus. I used to struggle with warts when I was a kid all the time. I haven't had warts in years. I would say like 10 years. But when I did get them, I realized now that I was extra stressed out when I started to see them pop up. I wasn't eating enough, I wasn't taking care of myself, and so therefore a virus can take hold. So keep in mind, guys, we need copper to keep viruses in check, and we need to make sure that we're utilizing copper properly. So a lot of times our immunity being low is usually a magnesium deficiency. We need B vitamins, we need, minerals like sodium and potassium, but we need to mostly just be eating enough, eating well, eating often, keeping our blood sugar balanced so that our body doesn't have to release stress hormones in order to do that itself. Because a lot of times what people don't realize is when we're not making sure we're consuming food regularly at regular intervals, food that's easy to digest, our body doesn't run on thin air. And so if we're, if we're not eating, our body's having to make fuel, and it's making it by increasing those stress hormones, the same stress hormones that suppress our immune system. So assuming I should hold off on supplementing Babe with D then, I know your rule of thumb for checking with doc, but both peds we've seen said they recommend that for every baby. Wondering why then? Because it's one of those things where people don't ever look into the why. I have had so many doctors recommend me take D or recommend me do this and recommend me do that, and I wish I would have known, different. I am always really careful with supplementation now because I know that a lot of times it can cause problems, and I'm especially careful with children. I don't personally work with children, but when it comes to like a child, I would be incredibly careful with supplementation because their little bodies can't, sometimes recover. And so I usually, as a rule of thumb, would focus on getting vitamin D from food first for them. So vitamin D rich foods. And then if that's not enough, and have they checked his vitamin D levels? Do they know that he's deficient in vitamin D? That would be my first question, because no one should just blanketly recommend anything for a child unless you know. And it's kind of been this it's this new fad supplement, whereas before, like 10 years ago, they never checked vitamin D ever because it wasn't like a big thing. Now it's like, oh my gosh, you have immunity problems, let's check vitamin D, let's do this. Now I'm not saying that it's you should go against your peds advice. It's just more like, there's always two sides to every story, and it's really important to dig into it and understand it before you supplement yourself or your child, because it can end up causing some problems. I love your page. I'm currently very confused with my PCOS. I get regular periods but have symptoms of PCOS. Is it true that you have regular period and not ovulate? You can have regular periods and have symptoms of PCOS. PCOS has nothing to do with your ovaries and has everything to do with your metabolism. So, that's the biggest confusion, and there's 99% of pages out there are just spreading misinformation. It pisses me off. So, just because it's called polycystic ovarian syndrome doesn't mean that it has anything to do with our ovaries. Having a metabolic and a cellular issue affects our ability to reproduce. And so it doesn't always affect our periods and our cycles. When I got diagnosed with PCOS, I really never had irregular cycles. Or was not ovulating. I just wasn't making enough progesterone because I had been so depleted by the birth control pill. I didn't have enough vitamin C, vitamin E, B vitamins, zinc, everything that I was so depleted. And then I had so much estrogen. So PCOS is a stress-driven issue, and it's an estrogen-driven issue. We're poor detoxifiers, our metabolisms are very slow, a lot of times our body temperatures are very low, and so we are not, it is actually a symptom of starvation, which a lot of people would see, many women with PCOS are overweight. And in reality, overweight people or people who are obese, they actually are usually starving. Their cells are starving because they're pushing all of their fuel into storage, and their cells are actually unable to take up glucose, that basic form of fuel. So when it comes to PCOS, it's all about getting minerals balanced. It's always all about getting blood sugar balance, making sure we're doing the right type of exercise, strength training all of the way. Making sure we're sleeping at decent hours, we're sleeping well, we're getting plenty of sunlight. Sunlight is very powerful at helping us make plenty of progesterone and lowering our stress levels by eating frequently. Like I said, blood sugar balancing is key. And then a lot of times women with PCOS have poor mineral balance, so whether it's excessive calcium, they're really deficient in magnesium and boron and B vitamins. So they have to get to the root cause of their issues and their imbalances for sure. But the basics always need to be addressed first, which is eat well, eat frequently, avoid phytoestrogens in the diet, make sure you're eating foods that are easy to digest and absorb, exercising properly, sleeping properly, yada yada yada. Some docs just don't know or don't think of what vitamins and minerals get antagonized when you increase or decrease another. Thank you, Isabel. Sometimes, you guys, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes when I have conversations with doctors, I'm just like, that's it. Silence. I won't even, because it's an ego thing, and this is very unfortunate. You know, they've gone to school for a long time, and keep in mind, they are professional drug dealers. That's what they are. That's what they were trained as. So even if we have a more functional minded doctor, they had to at one point switch over to a more functional mindset, and they have this very specific model, which is diagnose, treat, prescribe. Diagnose, treat, prescribe, or prescribe, treat. And it's really, that's what they're looking for. And I've seen it with functional medicine doctors as well. They're now prescribing supplements instead of prescribing medication. But what's the difference? You're still covering up the symptoms. You're not asking, why is this problem happening in the first place? Which is what a clinically trained scientist is supposed to ask. But a lot of times that's not what medical school is about. Medical school is about learning how to prescribe pills, unfortunately. And it's really unfortunate because these are very smart individuals that should be incredibly critical thinkers. And there are a lot of amazing ones out there, but there's also a lot of ones that I'm like, where'd your critical thinking skills go? They're gone. They've left the building, like, whoa, we're gone. And then a lot of times ego also gets in the way, because it's like a lot of times people go into the medical field to say, I'm a doctor, I'm an MD. It makes them feel really good about themselves, like they're above everybody else. And they a lot of times go in with that. Keep in mind, doctors also are taught in school to have an intimidation practice. They spend longer on teaching doctors how to do intimidation than they do on nutrition. So just keep that in mind. So it's just very interesting to me, the whole psychology of the medical system. A lot of times it is simply to get us to comply. Do you have any tips for recovering from crippling panic attacks? They really throw off my healing and discourage me a lot. Yeah, I'm sure they do. When it comes to panic attacks, I'm always looking for a reason as to why they're occurring in the first place. Recovering from them is, usually a very personal thing, like how you need to recover from them. But a lot of times crippling panic attacks have a lot to do with mineral issues. A lot of times they have to do with B vitamin deficiencies for sure, because the nervous system is being affected. A lot of times a panic attack is you're switching into a fight or flight state in such a rapid pace and having a very hard time getting out of that fight or flight state, and the body's actually working itself up. So I'm always looking for a copper issue. I'm always looking for calcium excess. Magnesium deficiencies are quite common, potassium deficiencies, sodium deficiencies. A lot of times people that have panic attacks they don't have a lot of lithium at all. They're pretty depleted in lithium, or it's non-existent. What else? B1 vitamin B1 is really important. So I would say that you're going to probably have more success in figuring out the root cause as to why they're happening and prevent them in the first place, rather than saying, like, how do you recover? Because once they happen, it's kind of like you got to recover the way that you feel like you need to recover. How to heal PCOS, brain fog, lack of concentration, progesterone makes me angry. Eat every 2 to 3 hours, protein, carb, and fat, and do that consistently for 6 weeks. If that's not helping, then are you strength training? Are you sleeping well? Are you getting to sleep at about 9 p.m.? Are you getting enough sunlight? Are you, getting it out into nature? Are you de-stressing? And then evaluate the stressors in your environment. Do you have mold in your environment? Are you in a really toxic relationship that's very negative? How do you view your body? Are you constantly living with the enemy and telling yourself how much you hate yourself? That's going to be really stressful. So really evaluating what's going on in the environment. But a lot of times brain fog is pretty much just a chronic low blood sugar state. Thanks, Jess. Most MDs aren't trained in nutrition. I didn't know how to explain collagen to him, so this helps a ton. Good, I'm glad. And sometimes, it's always hard with a doctor because it's always a hit or miss. Sometimes they're really actually intrigued and they really want to look it up, and sometimes they're just looking to stomp the argument down. I'm the MD in the room, And I'm like, just because you're an MD doesn't mean you're a critical thinker. Hey, Jess, any advice on healing diet for someone who's recovering from ulcerative colitis surgery? Thank you. If it were me, I would focus mostly on just gut healing foods, keep it really, really easy to digest. I would really focus on gelatin and high dose glycine from gelatin. Gelatin is so powerful. There's even studies that were done I want to say it's about 50 years ago, where they use about 50 grams of gelatin a day to heal people of Crohn's disease and other colitis type issues. So glycine or gelatin specifically is a very powerful food. Bone broth specifically, the really gelatinous bone broth. And I think that is the number one thing someone with a condition like that needs to focus on. I also really encourage the avoidance of things like greens, leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, and it's gonna still be so irritating. I really think that well cooked fruits, stewed fruits or stewed prunes or baked fruits, are gonna be really, really, they're easy to digest and absorb, as well as really well cooked squashes or squashes that are blended up into a soup with broth. So I would just stick to really easy to digest and easy to assimilate foods. And for protein specifically, that gelatin and glycine is so powerful. Also, I know you're trying to take new clients in the new year. I haven't had dairy in years because doctors told me it was inflammatory and throws off hormones. Would you recommend start taking a teaspoon and building tolerance before working with someone, or wait until then? You can always implement dairy on your own. I just recommend, like you said, doing it very slowly, tablespoon a day for a week. And then if that's too much, just go back down to a teaspoon. And then if you feel fine on a tablespoon, it's 2 tablespoons. But the type of dairy you're doing totally matters. So make sure you're doing a very high quality dairy. Non-homogenized tends to be the best if you can get your hands on it. What vitamin D food is okay? Is copper in a blood test accurate? Copper in a blood test is not super accurate. You're looking for ceruloplasmin, which is the carrier for copper. Vitamin D rich foods are going to be dairy products mostly. So milk, things like that. Milk, cheese, milk cheese. I'm trying to think of what else. I guess a little cottage cheese will have a little bit. And then what else has vitamin D? Not a lot of foods have vitamin D. Liver has vitamin D in it. But there's not a lot of vitamin D rich foods. Thoughts on herbal drops for babies, specifically thinking of Herb Farm's Immunity Avenger Fortifier. You just want to be very careful as to if they're going to cause the immune system to be overactive. So unfortunately, a lot of herbal formulas are not keeping that in mind. They're more for a use for a specific purpose, if the child's getting sick. I personally like homeopathic remedies first and foremost, just because homeopathic remedies tend to be the most gentle, but not all are safe for babies. So it's just important to kind of do your research on them. But usually with herbs, when it comes to babies, I'm super. I'd be very careful with my child, who is non-existent at this time, but in the future, I'm going to be focusing with them super nutrient dense foods. So high quality dairy or goat's milk or sheep's milk, whatever they can digest. I'm going to be focusing on lots of organ meats for them. So liver, hopefully I can get some heart. Like I want to get them used to eating organ meats at an early on point in time. What else? Lots of, not like lots of ferments, but fermented foods like sourdough bread or, some yogurt here and there, maybe a little kimchi or sauerkraut, just like little bits of ferments. But I'm very careful with children just because their bodies are so sensitive and herbs are so powerful. But I think it's like really up to mama and looking in and doing your own research. Like, what does your gut tell you? And just being, very, very conservative and careful, especially when they're really young. My potassium is very low on the HTMA. What could cause my body to not be absorbing it? Just probably not getting enough, and then just you're depleted. So stress has depleted you for so long. So a lot of times what happens is potassium just takes a long time to get back up. It's potassium is probably the most common deficiency or depletion that I see on an HTMA, because potassium is the first thing to go when under stress, especially if there's some type of like hypothyroidism going on. So that's why potassium is just so important to get in high amounts. And keep in mind, like, our daily recommended value is around 4,500 milligrams. That's just for our base needs. So a lot of people aren't even getting 4,500 milligrams a day. And then, to get your levels back up, you need to get more than that. Not just 4,500, but an excess of that to get your levels back up. Not to mention the stress that your body's going under on a day-to-day basis, further depleting those potassium levels. So it's about keeping stress low in order to get your levels back up. It's not that you're not absorbing it, it's that you're not getting enough. If I had to choose birth control pill for PCOS, which progestin type would you suggest? Drospirenone was really awful in the pill, more rage and no motivation at all. Even cuddling caused anger. BS. Yeah, I can't give a recommendation on birth control. I'm not a doctor. You guys know I'm not a fan at all of it for women with PCOS, because it just further depletes us of the nutrients we need to make progesterone and ovulate properly. But yeah, I think that's a personal choice, really. I looked into reptile lights and I've seen them go from 20 watts to 150. Doesn't matter which one I get. Thank you so much. I think it's just kind of what's in your budget, what you can afford, and I would say probably something in the middle of that is best. Also, keep in mind, like, it's going to take some power, so if you're going to have it, like, maybe parked next to you while you read, like, where are you going to have it in the house? Where are you going to actually realistically use it? I know sometimes we buy things and we're like, oh, I'm going to just buy it and I'm going to use it. But no, like, fit it into your lifestyle. If you're going to sit and read, think about where you're going to put it while you sit and read. Or if you sit and do whatever you do, where are you going to put it when you do that? So just kind of keep in mind how you're going to use it, and keep that in mind while you're purchasing something, a unit. And like, I'm spacing on, there is a name, like a vitamin D light, and I am spacing on it. I cannot remember the name for the life of me. I've been thinking about it this whole live. And so, but it is a little bit more pricey. I saw it on someone's Instagram like a week ago, and I was like, I gotta look into that. And I looked into it, and I was like, that's a little pricey, but it's good for vitamin D. But I think that reptile lights are just more, they're just cheaper. Like, it's the same thing. It just looks a little different. It's not so fancy. Thank you. Honestly, my gut tells me to give him half dose of those drops. He was stillborn at birth, lungs collapsed, and the doctor is pushing the V word, so I'm trying to protect him. Yeah, I think it's just really important to trust your gut. And if he's tiny too, it's like one of those things where, he probably will do better with a lower dose, always. And I figure nutrient-dense foods and herbal remedies are better. Yeah, it's one of those things when it comes to immunity, it's really about supporting the body at the cellular level. So making sure that really just mineral levels themselves, like magnesium and potassium and sodium, like so important. And for a child specifically, nutrient dense foods are where it's at. When I implement foods for my child at first, I'm going to be very specific with the foods that I do implement. Like, they don't need to be eating whatever, certain foods like nuts or whatever. And I know you don't give baby nuts, but a lot of times people are doing like nut butters or avocados. They're doing plant fats. And I'm like, no. I'm going to be doing saturated fats. I'm going to be doing lots of organ meats. I'm going to be doing lots of meat in general, high quality, like grass-fed, which is rich in zinc and copper and iron, the foods that they need in order to thrive, and the nutrients that they need to thrive. And then lots of fruits and fruit juices, because those provide lots of energy for them, lots of minerals and nutrients. And then like things like, really mashed up squashes with things like grass-fed butter or beef tallow. Remember, baby food is whatever you make it, and babies will pretty much eat whatever they need and what they like, and they'll go through phases. That's only natural and it's only normal. So it's so important to make sure that we're setting the stage for them, so that when they're 5 or 6, they just munch on whatever we give them, because they're used to eating that from the very beginning. All those weird cereal puffs and crap, like that's just not what they need. So Instagram's gonna cut me off. I'm gonna go live again for another hour. I see the question, thoughts on almond butter instead of peanut butter. So I will answer that first, and I'll see you guys in a second.